What's up guys, my name is Ace, and the weapon animations in Modern Warfare have been taken to a whole new level for the Call of Duty franchise, and in my opinion, these are actually some of the best weapon animations in the entire FPS genre. This is one of the first things I noticed when I first played this game back in May, is just how different these animations were compared to what we're used to in Call of Duty. And what I noticed was, for the first time in the Call of Duty franchise at least, it really felt like the weapon's recoil had an effect on my entire character, rather than just some floating hands on the screen that were reacting and playing an animation. This is the most real it has ever felt, really, in any game that I personally have played at least. I do feel that these animations are superior to the Battlefield franchise as well, which is really saying something, because Battlefield has always been superior in that sense to Call of Duty when it comes to realistic animations and realistic feel. Now, the really interesting thing about this is, even though they've completely revolutionized these animations, it still has that very familiar Call of Duty feel, which is great, because I don't feel that Call of Duty feel should ever be sacrificed for the sake of realism. And it's really had me thinking, how exactly did they do this? How did they make it so we can really get this realistic feel while still maintaining the integrity of that character control within Call of Duty? Now, since I'm such a Call of Duty nerd and I really like looking into how things actually work within the game, and also we've got some time to kill before the beta comes, I decided to break this down frame by frame, focusing mainly on the Desert Eagle, because that's something that really stood out in the Modern Warfare Alpha, was the Desert Eagle really felt like it had actual power to it when you were shooting it. And we also have a direct comparison with Modern Warfare Remastered, so I decided to focus on that, break it down frame by frame, and see all of the little details they've changed to give us this new feeling with these new animations. So the first thing with the animations I wanted to point out that doesn't directly relate to actual weapon recoil and firing your weapon, this is more so just turning your character model from side to side. When you do this, in previous Call of Duty games, the center of your screen was pretty much locked to your gun. It was really a stiff feeling, so when you turned your aim, your gun would remain perfectly in line with the center of your screen. In Modern Warfare, they went for a little bit more of a realistic approach here, where you'll see that the gun actually follows a couple frames behind as you sweep your aim left and right. This is much more realistic, because typically when you are moving side to side, you will lead slightly with your eyes and the sight picture will follow. So this is one little thing that I wanted to point out that definitely feels different, and I think a lot of people picked up on this really quickly, where a lot of people were saying it felt clunky. I really feel like this is the area they were talking about. But I do want to point out that, as far as I can tell at least, this is purely animation based, and this is why it still feels like Call of Duty. It's still quick and responsive, it's just the animation lags a little bit behind in order to simulate that more realistic feel. And this is awesome in my opinion. It does take a little bit of getting used to, because it definitely looks different than Call of Duty, but if you just trust the fact that it will respond just like we're used to in COD, then it actually feels great. Next up, getting into the actual weapon recoil when you're firing your gun while aiming down sight. The weapon model itself reacts completely differently. Now keep in mind, this is separate from the actual recoil in the game. This isn't actually your gun kick or your view kick, but just the way the actual model itself moves. In Modern Warfare Remastered, it basically just pivots off of the wrist. So you'll just see that it kicks upward from the wrist. It doesn't really kick backwards all that much, maybe just very slightly, but it mainly just rotates at your wrist, which isn't really a realistic feel. You don't actually feel that recoil coming back into your body when it's just rotating off your wrist like that. In Modern Warfare, you can see just how much the hands come back when you fire a shot. It's quite a bit. It happens very, very quickly, so you might not really pick up on this if you're just playing the game and seeing it in real time. But when you break that down frame by frame, you can see that it really comes backwards on you quite a bit, which gives you a feel of actual power from that gun. Next up, we have the Muzzle Flash. Mainly, this just looks really cool in Modern Warfare compared to Modern Warfare Remastered. With Modern Warfare Remastered, you've got a pretty standard Muzzle Flash. It looks like just a small explosion coming out of the end of the barrel, and it's not unique in any way. In Modern Warfare, you actually get that halo effect coming out of the Desert Eagle, which you will actually see in real life with the Desert Eagle. Another thing that's really cool that I noticed is this muzzle flash is actually affected by the attachments you have on your gun. If you put a muzzle brake or a compensator on the Desert Eagle, for instance, you don't get the same halo effect, which is much more realistic. Now, this area admittedly doesn't contribute all that much to the feeling of power that you get from the gun. I just think it looks really cool, and it's really awesome that they pushed it to the next level, and it's just that little attention to detail that I really wanted to point out here. The next thing I wanted to mention that goes hand in hand with animations, but it's technically a separate thing. This is the sound design. The sound design in this game absolutely contributes to that feeling of power that you get out of the guns. The Desert Eagle sounds amazing in this game. And while the COD 4 or the Modern Warfare Remastered Desert Eagle sound is really iconic and it brings back a lot of memories because of the good old days playing COD 4, it's got absolutely nothing on the new sound of the Desert Eagle. So finally, this brings us to the last change that I noticed with the weapon recoil animations, and this is what really makes a difference. This is the biggest factor that contributes to this feeling of recoil that you get with the guns. This is actually a change they made to view kick in Modern Warfare, and this is something we've never seen before in the Call of Duty franchise. Now, just in case you guys aren't aware, view kick is the amount that your actual camera will move when you fire a weapon. So completely ignore the gun, pretend the gun isn't even on the screen. It's just how much your view or your camera will move when you fire a weapon. In every previous Call of Duty game, guns will have effectively two view kick values. You'll have the pitch and the yaw, so vertical and horizontal view kick. Now for each gun, they have a different range that they can fall in for your pitch and your yaw when it comes to view kick. So every time you fire a gun, a value will be chosen within that range that will determine how much your view will kick upwards and how much your view will kick side to side. Most guns will generally have view kick values that will cause your view to move upwards and to the right every time you fire a shot. And like I said, this is how Call of Duty has always done it. This is pretty standard for a lot of first-person shooter games because it's a very basic, simple sort of system. The problem with this, though, is it feels very mechanical. When your screen just moves upwards and to the right when you fire a shot, and that's it. It just kind of like moves up and then moves back down again. It feels very mechanical. It doesn't feel very real. It doesn't feel like that weapon has much power. In Modern Warfare, they made a change that is quite subtle. You might not have picked up on this unless you have gone through frame by frame or watched in slow motion. In this game, not only do the guns have that horizontal and vertical view kick, there's also some rotational view kick, and this is very important when it comes to that realistic recoil feeling. So especially with the really powerful weapons, you can notice that your camera will actually rotate slightly after you fire a shot, and this feels much more realistic and much less mechanical. It feels like you're actually a living thing that can move on more than just two different axes. Additionally, when that view kick recenters, it actually overcompensates very slightly, which is also a very realistic thing. For anybody that shot real guns, a lot of the times that recoil will bring you back, but then as you actively push against that recoil, you will often overcompensate slightly and come back a little bit past where your point of aim was. With semi-automatic handguns especially, you'll really feel this with the slide. As that slide slams back forward, you will actually feel the gun pull forward slightly. And with this new style of view kick, it definitely simulates that and makes it feel much more realistic. So after looking at all of these different factors, which they have changed so many things, they've really gone deep into every little detail of these animations and completely reworked everything. The main factor that I feel contributes most to that powerful feeling of the weapons, where it feels like you're not just some floating hands that are reacting and playing an animation, but you can actually feel that recoil coming into your character, is the changes they made to the view kick values. That rotational view kick made such a big difference. Even though it might seem so minor and you might not have even picked up on that small detail, it's often those little things that can make the difference between something feeling very unrealistic and mechanical versus something that feels a lot more realistic. So huge shout out to Mark Grigsby and the entire animation team over there at Infinity Ward. They have really changed the game here when it comes to animations. And I feel this is one of the highlights that really takes Call of Duty to that next level, and not only brings it in line with other FPS games that are on the market that have been traditionally beating Call of Duty in this area, I feel they've now set the bar for a lot of other first-person shooters as well. Of course, though, I did want to ask you guys, what do you guys think about the new weapon animations in Modern Warfare this year? I know there was definitely some controversy about these animations before the alpha, like before the general public could actually get their hands on the game. When we were showing off gameplay, for instance, and people were seeing it, there were a ton of people saying like, oh, this isn't Call of Duty, that looks so clunky. This is basically just Rainbow Six Siege or Battlefield, mainly referring to the animations and how they looked. Now that you guys have had some hands-on time with the alpha, what do you think about these animations? Do you still hold that opinion? Do you think that those animations are too clunky and they make Call of Duty feel a lot slower? Or has your opinion changed on that? Also, if you weren't one of those people that didn't like the animations, I'd still like to hear from you guys. What are your opinions on the changes they've made to the weapon animations in Modern Warfare? Just let me know those thoughts in the comment section down below. If you enjoyed the video, a like rating is always appreciated, and don't forget to subscribe for more if you haven't already. I'll talk to you guys next time.